What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another update for you guys today. We've got 3 players only to talk about today, but very reliable sources on these ones. And we're going to start off with Desiree Doue. Fabrizio Romano says Doue is on the list for Tottenham. He's a player that they are considering internally. They have expressed their interest in him to his agents. And Paul O'Keefe is also saying that Tottenham are showing firm interest in Desiree Doue. We've spoken about him before. Top talent coming out the French league, playing for Rennes at the moment, 18 years of age, another 18-year-old that Spurs could be potentially going after, a left winger and someone who has got very, very high ceiling to him.
Might have to start calling us Tottenham under-18s over the line, I reckon, after the Archie Gray deal and Bergwijn and all these other signings. But he's one who I'm extremely interested in. I think he's exactly the kind of winger we need at Tottenham, someone who's able to beat a man, take people on, create chances on the wing, and also commit players as well, create space for other players. It's a kind of profile we're lacking at the moment when it comes to our wingers. I guess the problem is he is only 18, and at the moment, do we need a more established winger? I don't know. I feel like you can see at the moment in world football, you got Yamal at the moment, who's 16 years of age. He's ripping it up at the Euros. I think as a winger, age isn't really too much of a factor, because I feel like the fearlessness of young players sometimes make for better wingers occasionally, because they're just more willing to take people on, they're more willing to take risks, they're more willing to commit players. So I think Doue would be a really, really interesting signing. Obviously, it probably would be a decent amount of money, but if it wouldn't be as much as someone like an Eze or someone like that. So I'm all for it. I think it'd be a great signing.
Would you bring in Doue over Eze if it meant not getting Eze?
Probably not. Probably not. But just because Eze is more tried and tested, is Premier League proven, can play in a few different positions as well. We know how good he is. But Doue is a very exciting talent. Obviously had a brilliant season for Rennes out in France, and he's ripping up at the moment in Ligue 1. And he's exactly the kind of winger we want, to be honest. Regardless
of age, and we're going back to your previous point, I mean, I think it's just a case of if you're good enough, you're old enough kind of thing. It doesn't really matter about age. I think that's being proven at the moment with someone like Lamine Yamal coming through at Barcelona. Not only is he doing it for Barcelona in the league, but he's smashing it out on the European stage with Spain at the moment. The talent that he's showing on a consistent basis is actually scary for a 16-year-old. And that's 16. This guy's 18, and he's shown it week in, week out in the French league last season for Rennes. I would love to see him come through the door. I believe in his talent so much. The more I see him, the more I love him. If it meant getting him in and not getting Eze in, I think it could be something like I wouldn't say short-term pain, because it's not going to be short-term pain, because I think he is someone that can get minutes straight away. But I feel like Eze, like you said, is more ready right now. So I feel like Eze would be coming in for top quality right now, where Doue will probably take maybe a year or two to get to the levels that Eze is at right now. So in that sense, it's a bit of like short-term pain for long-term gain. But either way, I'd love either of them or both of them through the door. I can't see us buying both of them this summer. I think it's one or the other. But either or, I think, would be brilliant acquisitions for us.
Yeah, and again, it gets a profile we don't have, and that's a really, really crucial thing.
Yeah. Another player that we are being linked with today from Paul O'Keefe is Pedro Neto. He says one of the players that they've previously edged away from is back in contention for Spurs, and that is Pedro Neto. We know that he's had consistent injury problems, particularly in the last 2-3 years, which has turned me off personally. I feel like he's such a top talent. He really is. Whenever he's on the pitch, he makes you get up off your seat. Proper bums off seats player. Exact profile we need again. And maybe because of his injury problems, you can get him at maybe a cheaper rate than what you would have got him for otherwise. Maybe what they were talking about before his last injury, they were talking about like 60, 70 million, around that figure. So maybe you can get a cheaper deal on that. But I just feel it's too much of a risk with the injury problems that he has had.
Well, the reason for me that the deal that might be reignited tells me that the price has dropped significantly. And if that is true, then it's time to revisit it potentially. Obviously, for a massive outlay like 60, 70 million for a player with his injury record, I don't think it's a smart piece of business. And you might find yourself, when he does join, just being frustrated by him constantly being injured. But if you can get him for a good deal, it might be worth it. Some players like Neto, even if they can be injury prone, sometimes they're just worth having around, even if they can only play 20, 25 games a season.
I don't even think he can do that.
Maybe he can. Maybe he can't. Maybe he can. But if you can get him for 20 to 25 games a season, then I think that could be worth it for a good price. But it depends what that price is, and depends. We know whether he passed the medical, and we look at his injury problems. At the moment, he's away at the Euros for Portugal. Had a really good impact off the bench in the first game, but hasn't really been able to do the same in the subsequent games. Did start in the last game against Georgia, didn't do too well, but I'd really like him in terms of he's a two-way winger who can play on the right or the left, and he's equally as effective on either side, and it's very rare to find a player like that. And if we can keep him fit, it'll be a phenomenal signing. But it's about how much of an outlay is worth it for Tottenham, and I can't see any interest being reignited if the price hasn't dropped a lot.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I mean, I guess last season he did play 20 games in the Premier League, which is not bad at all. That's the most he's played out of the last 3 years. Year before 18, year before 13, and the 2 years before that, 31 and 29. So he's had injury-struck seasons the last 3 years, but last year, 20 games is not too bad, is it?
It's all right. I mean, but again, you don't want to be spending, I don't know, I think 40 million is the absolute max I think I would spend on him. I don't think I would spend more than that.
What are these injuries that keep plaguing?
Well, he had an ACL, obviously.
Yeah, we know that. But what's the ones that keep...
hamstring.
Is it hamstrings? Are those the reoccurring ones?
I think he had a hamstring last year, I believe, and then he had an ankle injury.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, the jury's out with Pedro Neto. I absolutely love him as a player. If it wasn't for these injury problems, I would say Spurs should be absolutely all over this. But I do question whether Spurs should go for it because of these injury problems. Do we want someone that's going to be, more guaranteed to be available throughout the whole course of the season? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Last but not least, this is from Fabrizio Romano, and one that's come really out of nowhere regarding Ryan Cherki. And he says Tottenham have made contacts with the agents of Ryan Cherki. They don't have full agreement with Lyon yet. Lyon want an important percentage on the future sale, and the interest from Tottenham is concrete at this stage.
That'd be really interesting. Obviously, he would be kind of coming in probably, I would assume, to play back up to Madders as a cam. He's obviously a player who can also play on the wing as well. What I like about Cherki is these kind of players are very rare to find in modern football. Players who use skills and their on-the-ball ability to beat players rather than just physical attributes. He's a real box of tricks, Cherki. He's got a really good repertoire of skills available to him. Obviously, he's got really good ability striking the ball as well. He can score a few goals. Obviously, doesn't have the best goal scoring record, but he's got a good shot on him. I really like his creative ability. He's got great creativity. His biggest strength for me is probably his dribbling, and it'd be really interesting. He's had in the past, I think, some attitude problems that I think people have mentioned, but obviously the likes of Dortmund are looking at him. I think a few other clubs are looking at him as well. It would be a really interesting signing because he's a very, very skillful player. And there aren't that many players around that are as skillful as him, I feel.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because this season he took part in 34 games. Only 19 of them he started. He came on off the bench for 14 games this season, which I'm not sure why. Yeah, you mentioned those attitude problems. It's something that I've been made aware of as well. But in terms of the games that he has started for Lyon this year, there's 9 in attacking midfield, 6 on the right wing, 3 on the left wing, and 1 even up front as well this season. So a very versatile player, a player with unbelievable ability on the ball. It's just a question of, can you get him playing consistently well? Can you put those attitude problems behind him? Because we know if he's got attitude problems, or if he's got any sense of attitude problems, Ange ain't going to want him here. And us as fans are probably not going to want him here either. But in terms of an out-and-out player, he is of a top caliber. But we said that with a player who had attitude problems as well in Tanguy Ndombele coming from Lyon, and we all know how that happened and what that finished.
Each player is different, and he's still young. He's still 20 years. He's only 20 years of age, so soon to be 21. But he's still very young, and those attitude problems can change. Just because you're a certain way at one age doesn't mean you're always going to be that way. So maybe if Tottenham looking at it, look, a player who on the data looks extremely good.
Yeah.
And I think when you're on the eye test as well, you look at him play, he's a joy to watch. He's one of those players, when he gets the ball, you don't know what he's going to do with it because he's just got so much ability. But it's whether Tottenham can get him doing the right things off the ball as well, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if he was going to come here and play back up to Maddison, I mean, surely we don't get him and Eze as well. Like,
No, definitely not.
all these noises coming out just says to me that we're not getting Eberechi Eze.
Probably.
That's
I mean,
what-
it depends. Look, I don't know how realistic Neto is, or Doue or Cherki even, but look, we've heard noises about Eze as well. So the fact of the matter is, though, Eze is going to cost 60+ million. These guys aren't. So maybe that's the thinking.
Yeah, I guess. And when you're talking about Ryan Cherki as well, he was heavily linked to Borussia Dortmund and Liverpool and a few other teams over the past coming weeks. And I thought he was all but set to join one of them, Borussia Dortmund, I think it was. And I'm not sure what's happened there, but it looks as though Spurs are in talks with him, if you believe Fabrizio Romano, which is a very reliable source. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below.
Hijack, I smell.
Spurs are on the way to another hijack, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.